My name is Peter Outerbridge, and I'm playing Dr. William Miro. He is a surgeon who specializes in, I don't want to give too much away. He's a surgeon. He's a doctor. He's working on some very experimental types of surgery and medicine, so he is not practicing in a peer-reviewed environment. When we meet Dr. Miro, he is at the head of a hospital, or he's in charge of an academy for young women. We're not entirely sure what he's doing. He seems like a very nice guy who genuinely cares for the girls in the academy. He's basically the school's doctor. Miss Brixel, I guess you could say, is the head lady or the head mistress of the school, and she and Miro are in a relationship, basically. The two of them are running the school together.
Is it going well between them?
The relationship between Miro and Brixel is slowly disintegrating, I think. I believe that it was probably started off quite strongly. They had a shared interest in the type of work that Miro did for a living. But as the work has become a little bit more ethically challenging, I think that Miss Brixel sort of hopes that maybe their efforts could go in a different direction than it is, and I think that ethically it's beginning to wear on her, and therefore wear on the relationship as well. Given the opportunity, I think Miss Brixel would probably leave Miro, but I think he has too much on her. Well, you know, the school is, it's kind of a finishing school, and I think that the old movies have certain female archetypes that are not necessarily realistic archetypes, but are archetypes that have been created by Hollywood to represent how women should be and how women should behave, and certainly more so than contemporary movies. And so I think he is, what's the word for it? Not, he's showing them these movies over and over and over to sort of, there's a word for it, not impress upon them, but it's like,
Indoctrinate?
well, there's certainly indoctrinate, but it's sort of like it becomes sort of implanted in the mind that this is who I should emulate and who I should be like. So he's chosen a lot of movies where the women are very feminine and very polite and very obedient and very charming, and you know, at a certain point he does introduce a Vivien Leigh movie into the system, and it kind of backfires on him, because Vivien Leigh, of course, had a lot of spirit and a lot of independence and a lot of vim, and that starts to get impressed on our main character, Vivian, which is not what he wants. But I think he's also just a real fan of old movies. What's interesting to me is that in terms of what Miro's motives are, in terms of what the final product is of his research and his experiments, that he would be concerned at all about impressing upon his students a certain type of ethic or a certain type of code of behavior, because he's certainly not finishing the girls to go out into society. So it is interesting that he, within the confines of the school, is trying to get them to follow this sort of code or this ethic, because it really serves no purpose other than it keeps them all in line, which I guess ultimately is really what it serves. You don't want any upstarts in terms of his research, in terms of what he's doing. You don't need the students to be thinking for themselves. So you want to create a mindset, basically, where the students will follow orders, they'll do what they're told, they'll be demure, they won't question authority. So I think that's the other reason that he does it. So does he have a conscience? I think he does. I think in this particular situation, he feels that he has done the morally right thing. Although clearly, ethically and morally, it's unforgivable what he's doing. But I think his argument is that these students, they either would have ended up on the sex trade market, or they would have ended up dead in the gutter, or just living a life on the streets in poverty. So I think he believes that he's at least given them a safe environment, a safe place to grow up in. It's that kind of thing. It's like you have to try to justify your actions in some way, and I think the only way that he can justify his actions is that way. Otherwise he wouldn't care. He would just keep them in cells and hose them down with water every day, But he's clearly trying to ease his own conscience, which ultimately is a roundabout way of saying, yes, he must have a conscience, because he wouldn't have done any of this if he didn't have a conscience, right? He would just keep, like I said, he would keep them in cells and hose them down and feed them porridge, right? But I'm a big fan of the genre. So when a script like this comes along and you don't really see the end, where it's going. I mean, the script sort of struck me in the same vein as like a Twilight Zone episode or an Outer Limits episode, where there's a really interesting hook at the end of it. So it's sci-fi, and one of the great beauties of sci-fi is the genre itself can be used to talk about all sorts of things metaphorically, philosophically. And then within that framework, if you can throw a nice little hook on at the end, it's a great genre to work in, and it's a great sort of a style to work in. And I thought the script in particular handled it really, really well, because it sort of takes you on this creepy journey where you really don't know. It's very surreal. And then at the end you go, oh, it's not surreal at all. Actually, there's a real, perfectly reasonable explanation for everything that's going on. It's just horrible. It's just really horrible. So you get these types of films where, because there's a surreality to it, you're trying to figure it out as you go. You're trying to say, well, this can't be reality. So what actually is going on here? Are they being schooled to, I don't know, go into outer space? Has there been a nuclear war? Are they in a bunker somewhere? So you're trying to put it together. When you finally find the reality, and it's like a Twilight Zone episode where, the guy's in a fallout bunker and he believes that the world is destroyed, and so he lives there his whole life, and finally when he thinks it's safe to come out, he comes out and he's 85 years old and nothing happened. The world is perfectly fine and it's beautiful out, right? And so you get this, you get that great reveal at the end. So that's really what drew me to the script. I love stories like that. I grew up on Twilight Zone and Outer Limits, and movies like that really piqued my interest. No, she's fantastic. She's great. She's very, very smart. She's really, really pleasant to work with. God knows there's some directors out there who are not pleasant to work with. And she's written a great story. And she knows what she wants, which is really the most important thing from a director, because you can also get directors who don't really know what they want, and you can spend hours on a scene where you finally just go, look, if I could give you what you wanted, I would have done it by now. So, let's move on, because clearly you don't know what you want, and I can't give you what you don't know what you want, so, right? But she's, and she's very flexible too. So she's very amenable to working with the actors, taking in ideas, flipping them around or taking an idea and then taking it somewhere else. So, you know, she's got all the right qualities for a director, because from my kind of director, because she's flexible, she's smart, she is decisive, you know, and she's just a lovely person, right? So it makes the whole experience so much easier.